Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2024. My name is Madonna Yoder, and you're joining hundreds of folders around the world on this 25-day journey into the infinite world of repeating patterns folded from a single sheet of paper. You'll discover many different twists in this challenge, building up to advanced patterns with hybrid hexagon twists. On day 5 of Advent of Tess, we are folding this pattern that I call Twirling Triangles. And it has open triangles and closed triangles on both sides. It does use a cluster 4 symmetry pattern like we've seen in days 2 and 4. And this time we have a little extra space in the center. So I've got my 24 division triangle grid on a hexagon. If you'd like to see the crease pattern for this tutorial or see how to fold this grid, definitely sign up for email reminders at training.gatheringfolds.com/advent if you haven't done that already. And let's go ahead and find the center of this piece. So there's our center point. I'm going to label that A. And this time, instead of 2 spacings from A, we're going to go 3 spacings. So one way of thinking about this is that, there are many ways to think about this. One thing I'll note is, unlike yesterday, this time the open triangle twists around the center on the A side are right-handed. So this is slightly different. And when I think about a right-handed twist, I typically draw the mountain fold on the right-hand side and then the valley above. When I'm doing a left-handed twist, I typically draw the mountain on the left-hand side and draw the valley above. So I want to go through this both with pens and with telling you how I would find this if I wasn't using any pens. So first, I want to find that spacing, those 3 spaces out for my mountain fold. And that's going to continue another 2 spaces. It would be just 1 if this was a closed twist, but 2 since it's an open twist. My valley fold, again, 1, 2, 3 spaces out, is going to make contact there on the grid line that's headed out to the corner. And my next mountain fold is going to be 1 space further out than the valley, which is outlining my 3rd mountain fold direction for that open triangle twist. If I was doing this without pen, I would be saying, okay, on my bottom corner, on my vertical grid lines, I'm going to be counting 1, 2, 3 spaces out and putting in a mountain fold with a valley on the outside. And I never want to put in just a mountain fold or just a valley fold. I always want to have both so that I can pinch them together and hold on to them easier. Then in this direction, so notice 120 degrees between these directions, I'm going to have the valley fold coming 3 spaces from the corner. So 1, 2, 3, or on camera, 1, 2, 3 spaces. And then the mountain fold further out than that, and pinch that down. And then I'm looking for, okay, where is my grid triangle that's between these 2 mountains? And this is going to be an open triangle twist. So I'll find my 3rd direction of mountains from there. So that's how I'm going to find my first twist. And then flipping the paper over, I want to stay aware of where my center point is. And I'm going to be looking for that same kind of spacing the 3 spaces away from the center, and I'm going to be alternating my fold type as I'm going around the center. So I had a mountain here, so that means this one's going to be a valley, and the next one is going to be a mountain. These are 3 spaces away from the center, and they are also 3 spaces long. So I'm also going to have, you can see where I transition from mountain to valley in here. So 3 spaces of valley there, and then 3 spaces of mountain, finished up by those 3 spaces of valley. So then when I'm looking for my next twists, I'm saying, okay, that valley is there, and if I haven't drawn anything on the paper, that valley is going to be 3 spaces above the corner, and the mountain is going to be 1 space away because we never just fold a valley or just fold a mountain. And I'm looking for where I can fit an open triangle twist on these 2 pleats that I already determined were needed. And squash. Here you can see that the corner of the twist on one side is 1 space out from the corner of the open hole from the twist on the other side. This is 1 space more than we saw in day 4. And that's because we counted 3 spaces out instead of 2. Likewise, for the twist on this pleat, I want to find that mountain fold going around the center. And so if I'm doing this without drawing, I would be saying, okay, that mountain is 1, 2, 3 spaces below this corner. And it's not just a mountain, it's a mountain and a valley. And then I have these coming in together here, and I'm going to outline this grid triangle so they're meeting at that point, and then that's the grid triangle that I'm outlining, because the grid triangle is always further from the valleys. So you could look at this and say, well, both of these outline this grid triangle too, but this valley is coming in and hitting the corner of the grid triangle. We need the grid triangle where the valleys are missing it by a spacing every time. And squash. Flipping back to the A side, when I'm looking at this, I see I need consistency around the center. I'm going to have 1 space between the open hole on the back and the corner of the twist on the front, the corner of the twist on the front and the open hole on the back. This is true for both sides. So I'm going to come 1 space out from that open hole and put in my valley fold. And as usual, it's never just a valley fold. So I'm going to have a mountain along with it. This is going to open up my existing pleat. And one thing I want us to notice here is that here we've got those stair steps pleats like I was talking about on day 3. And I'm starting at the top of the stairs. And this is the opposite, like yesterday, we were starting down closer to me because that layer was on top, because the twists closest to the center on the A side were left-handed then, but they're right-handed now. So that's the distinctions that I'm working with here. One other thing I can draw on right away that will be helpful is the valley for this pleat down here, because that's the valley that we need to keep as a valley in order to get our triangle wrap. Now these twists are far enough away that you could get away with not doing a wrap and just doing pleat overlaps, but I want to get us in the habit of doing triangle wraps so that when these denser situations come up, you'll be used to it. So one important thing here is that this mountain of the open triangle twist above has the valley on the outside. And then we're letting the valley of our twist from the second pleat come until it contacts the valley from up above. And then that is going to split out as a three-way intersection. And then there's going to be that three-way intersection of mountains up above that allows us to wrap around. It's going to be resistant at this stage, like you can get it to kind of go in, but the problem is this pleat that's extending from the finished twist. We have a pleat coming in this way, a pleat coming in this way, and the stress of shortening the paper in those directions has not been accommodated because we need to erase that existing pleat back to where we can put in the third pleat of the triangle twist. And with that in place, now the wrap can fully close. So with these, they are two twists, they're far enough apart that you can squash them in either order. It really doesn't matter. And then once those two are squashed, we'll flip over and shift the current mountain down a spacing so that instead of coming all three mountains to a single point, we're shifting that down so it outlines our target triangle instead, and putting the valley on the far side so we can squash our new twist. So now from here, we want to fold our closed triangle twists, and one spacing variable that I want to point out that we already talked about a little here is that we did these central twists with the pleats 3 spaces out from the center instead of 2. You could also do this pattern with those closer together, and what that's going to do is move the clusters of twists closer together. The next spacing variable is the distance between a corner twist and the center twist. And in this particular case, we're going to add an extra space here also. So instead of having our next twist, and the next twist is going to come from our open hole here, instead of having that twist be 1 spacing out, which would be the maximum density, more or less, there's caveats, we're going to have that be 2 spaces out instead. So going 2 spaces out from the corner of the closed hole, not where the pleat emerges from under the neighboring pleat. We're going to open up and put in our 3 mountains coming into a single point for a closed triangle twist. And squash. From here, all of the twists, and really in this pattern, every twist, every pleat from every twist goes to another twist on the opposite side of the paper. We never see 2 pleats or 2 twists sharing a pleat that are on the same side of the paper in this pattern. So that's distinct from what we've seen so far. And I want to work from one of these two pleats off of the closed triangle, but both of those are going to need to be on the other side. So I'm going to grab my closed triangle and flip to the A side. And I'm going to choose to work on this pleat because this one is sitting on the bottom layer of this pair of parallel pleats, while this one is sitting on the top layer of this pair of parallel pleats. And I always talk about layering with pairs of parallel pleats instead of pleats around a twist, because there is no stable ordering with pleats around a twist. So if I'm working on this one, I want to come one space out from the closed hole, at least with this spacing, to put my valley fold. My mountain fold will be one space further, and then this will be an open twist, so my third mountain will be shifted out from the point where it would need to be for a closed twist. And as I'm thinking about setting this up, I also want to be aware that on the next pleat, I'm going to want a closed twist to be the center of that new cluster. So I think I'm going to walk through this on this side doing just one twist at a time, and then the next set of parallel pleats I'll start showing with the triangle wrap. So putting in just this open triangle twist, I can squash that in place. And then if I want to do my next twist, let's go ahead and flip the paper over. This is going to be exactly the same spacing as these two twists because they're identical parts of the pattern, which isn't super clear right now, but the B section is going to be out here if we had enough paper. And so I'm going to have an extra space from the corner of the open hole until I reach the corner of my new open twist. This one is one of our ones where the corner of the twist will be precisely at the edge of the paper. So remember, one space out from our hole is going to be our new twist. And this one, I really, really want to do a wrap here. And the way this wrap is going to work is because my new pleat is already going under the existing pleat. I'm simply going to erase the previously existing pleat until it's back far enough that this mountain is touching the new mountain fold, and that'll send my pleat off this way instead of running straight through an existing open twist and causing a new fold to happen in the middle of the twist. And then we can set up and squash that new twist. Flipping over, this one is the center of a cluster. It's got those open holes around it, so it's going to be a closed triangle twist. And then the next twist off of it that we want to work on is going to be on the other side of the paper. So I'm taking those two parallel pleats and moving them so they're going horizontally off to the right. This time I'll show with setting up these two twists on the two pleats with a triangle wrap in between. I'm going to have my valley fold for the distance to the corner. Again, this is a spacing variable. You choose it once for the whole pattern. This can't vary for different corners of a cluster or between different clusters. It's just a whole pattern spacing variable. And I'm also going to have very similar spacing, one spacing out from the open hole. So where the valley of the next closed triangle is going to go. So I'll set up my open triangle here while respecting the valley of the new closed triangle. Then I'll finish setting up the closed triangle and solidify my triangle wrap. So I've got that three-way intersection of valleys down below, three-way intersection of mountains up above, and that will lock into place. And then I can squash my open twist and my closed twist. And then flip over and shift this pleat one spacing out to fold another open twist around this closed hole. It's a little bit tricky to squash twists that have corners right on the edge of the paper. So I'm paying more attention to how these two corners are setting up and then spreading that out into the third corner. So now it's time to move to the next set of parallel pleats, and I'm already on the right side of the paper. So notice I only had to flip the paper over once, where with the other way I flipped it 1, 2, 3 times to get back to the same place. So that's one of the reasons why I like using the triangle wraps. The other is I get to squash 2 twists right in a row without having to wait to set up another one. So one space out from the closed hole is my valley on the top pleat, one space out from the open hole and in the same direction is my valley for the closed twist. And I'm going to set up my open twist above, only running my mountain until it hits that next valley, and my closed twist below. And I'm going to make sure that I have my three-way intersection of valleys and my mountain going out to the edge paired with the valley down below, because we never have mountains or valleys on their own. They always come in pleated pairs, with the very slight exception of when we're squashing a twist. Then it's either just mountains or just valleys. And then we have that triangle wrap that we're going to flip over, shift our mountain one spacing down, and squash our new open triangle twist. Now notice as I squash, like I said, I'm squashing these inner corners first, and then spreading the squash out towards the edge of the paper. And that puts us in position to fold our next 2 pleats. Doing this without marking the paper, I'm going to set up my open triangle twist first. I could have chosen to do the closed triangle twist, but what I want to do is just emphasize that valley that I'm going to need that's hitting one space from the open hole. And so I can then run my new mountain all the way until I hit that. And I don't really want to pinch this all the way to the corner. I want to let that slide back So I can see it wants to wrap, but it won't until I finish setting up my closed triangle twist on top, and then it will happily close into place. And then it's time to squash both the open twist and the closed twist. So sometimes adding extra space makes it harder to see what's going on. Sometimes it makes it easier to fold because you're not folding on top of anything else, of other layers. It really depends on the pattern and how confident you are in identifying what's going on. And then flipping over, we've got that open twist that's right at the edge. And I must say, like, all the twists that are going in right at the edge are working remarkably well for me today. Like, if yours are crumpling and needing some help from the bone folder on the inside, that is the normal state of things. Like, you are not doing things wrong. It is just the normal state of things. So then for the last edge, we have 3 parallel pleats, and we can go ahead and do all 3 of them with triangle wraps in between. So this first one I set up as an open triangle, and I'm running this mountain down until I'm hitting the grid line that I need as a valley, which is hitting 1 space out from the open hole for my closed twist. And then that mountain I'm running out only as far as the new valley, which hits 1 space out from the open hole that I need for my next open twist. So with all 3 of these in place, it's a very quick process to squash and squash and squash. And now when we flip over, it is also a fairly quick process to flip. So that one was a push and flip because we're going for an open twist and squash, and push and flip and squash for our final open triangle twist. So that is twirling triangles. Let's see how I flip it over to get the letters both up. There we go. And that is all for today's tutorial. Like I said earlier, you can play with the spacing on this one to get these twists in a bit from the edge. You can do 2 spaces instead of 3 around the center to get the clusters closer together. And you can do just 1 space instead of 2 between this corner and the center of the closed triangle to get these clusters closer together as well. So make sure to use hashtag Advent of Tess and Advent of Tess 24 and tag me at Gathering Folds when you are sharing this pattern on Instagram, Facebook, or wherever else you want to share it. And happy folding. I'll see you later. Oh, one more thing. If you want crease patterns for more repeats of this, I do have an ebook with crease patterns. It also has one of those spacing variations that I mentioned, where everything is a lot closer together. And you can find that at gatheringfolds.com. It's the Advent of Tess 2024 crease pattern ebook. So happy folding, everyone, and see you for tomorrow's tutorial.